And then, okay, cool. So, okay. So, just to continue, no, yung sinasabi ko sa inyo,
Recording in
guys,
progress.
that CMA, this is a good opportunity for you guys. Paano ba stop to? Okay, this is a good opportunity for you guys to level up on your career. So, 2 exams lang naman po siya, madali lang po siya, no? But I know you guys are working also while reviewing. Mahirap siya, but at the same time, I'll always encourage you guys to at least, no, take 2 to 3 hours a day of your time, no? Manage your time well. Medyo maraming topics, but I tell you, paulit-ulit lang yung sinasabi niya. Okay? Those of you, no, before I go start with our discussion, I would just like to also give some few tips for you guys while reviewing. No, I know you are trying to manage your time on your work, on your extracurricular activities, at the same time, your time in reviewing. So, make sure that you have a schedule, manage your time well, and it's very important, guys, for you to understand saan yung weakness ninyo. I understand yung iba, wala talagang accounting background. Yung iba meron. So, if meron kayong accounting background, lalong-lalo na yung mga graduate ng management accounting or anything related sa accounting, it's the same concept. Medyo may mga nagbago lang with the terminologies and whatnot, but it's still the same. Okay? So, I always suggest, if you don't have time, no, go straight to the questions. Okay? Attend classes. Okay? That's the first thing. Attend your sessions, attend your classes. Go straight to your questions. Okay? Do not waste your time reading the materials. Kasi alam ko ang kapal ng materials eh. That's what I actually do. I don't know if it works for you, but I'm just trying to share. Makapal kasi yung materials, tas paulit-ulit yung sinasabi niya. Okay? So, it's easier and it'll be more beneficial if you have lesser time to review. At tangkahin niya na agad yung questions. So, you can understand, guys, kung paano yung mga atake ng questions. That's one. And then, you can identify saan kayo nahihirapan. Okay? On what topics you feel like dun kayo nahihirapan. And then, if you've already established, no, what are your strengths, what are your weakness topics, dun kayo magbasa. Dun kayo mag-conduct ng additional effort, no, sa mga topics na yon. Okay? So, diskarte lang, guys. And then, konting sacrifice din, of course, for you to be able to get these certificates. It is really fulfilling. Since this is really tawag dito, ini-encourage talaga siya because it's a international certificate. So, ayun. And then, what's next? Okay, so our topic for today is that yung section E natin, which is your internal controls. This is very, very important, especially if you guys are working right now in your organizations, in your companies, there are controls in place. Okay? So if you will be managers in the future, if you will be moving up in your positions or whatnot, these controls might be your responsibility, but as individual employees, as part of an organization, ang dami din natin, no, dapat na sinusunod na control within our organization. And it's really very important for us, no, to understand the importance of these controls. Like, why are they implemented? Okay? Why are companies spending a lot of money, no, to implement these controls? Ako noon parang wala lang, no? Parang what are these rules? Parang napaka-nonsense, parang mga ganon. But when I became an auditor, IT auditor pala ako, guys. When I became an IT auditor, ito na yung mga tinetest ko. And then, I've came to realize how important these controls are. Okay? So, before we jump into controls, no, dun muna tayo sa pinaka-root. Okay? Bakit tayo may controls? It's basically because, sorry guys. Before I proceed, ang dami kong house rules tayo guys. House rules. Ilan na ba yung participants natin? Meron tayong 4. Okay. So, house rules guys, since 4 lang tayo, and even though medyo marami tayo later on, I'm expecting you guys to be proactive, no? Siguro magtatanong-tanong ako, so don't feel shy to speak up. Again, walang mali sa CMA exam. Especially when you're doing later on the essay. Okay? It's really for you how you rationalize your answer. So, habang we're doing our sessions, let's already practice that. Okay? So, whenever I ask questions, please participate in the chat box, or you can unmute your mic and we can have a discussion. So, para mas interactive yung discussion natin, hindi siya nakakantok. Okay, now let's proceed. So, again, going back to our topic, internal control, section E, the root cause of implementing controls. No worries, sige po. Noted po, Miss Danica. Chat na lang po. Okay lang po if Chat na lang po, Miss Danica. Okay? Thank you for the heads up. Okay. Cool. So, now let's proceed. Going to the root cause on why we are implementing a control. It's very important for us to understand what risk is. Okay, ano ba yung risk? No? If napapansin nyo guys, dumadami na ngayon yung mga profession about risk. This is a growing type of profession. I myself, I am a risk consultant. I'm an IT risk consultant. Meron na rin ngayon mga risk managers. No? Ang daming lumalabas ngayon. Especially in this kind of technology, no? Na lahat na is connected sa internet, sa web, mas marami yung risk. Okay? But I want us to focus on just the very, very simple description of what risk is. So, very simple, no? These are the unforeseen obstacles to the pursuit of a company's objectives. Risks take many forms and can originate from inside or outside the organization. Okay? So, ito in a business perspective. Now, let's go into the perspective of someone else's day-to-day life. Ano yung mga risks? Okay? Okay, ano yung risks natin? Ako, one of my risks would be so my objective today is to attend this class. Okay? One of my risks is that hindi mag-work yung alarm ko, hindi ako magising. Okay? So, what will happen if I won't be able to wake up in time? I won't be attending these classes. That's one. Okay? Ang risk mo, pagpasok sa opisina, okay, traffic, that's already a risk. No? Ayaw nating mag-work sa office. Gusto lang nating mag-work from home. Kasi ang daming risk. First risk, traffic. Okay, second risk, you might have an accident along the way. What else? Magkaroon ng problema yung sasakyan. Okay? So, you see all of this risk. Even in relationships, guys, di ba? Masyadong gwapo yung jowa mo, guys. That's a risk, di ba? Parang nakikita mo, it's a positive, but at the same time, if you will try to understand, risk siya okay? Kasi it's an obstacle on your relationship. Pag masyadong gwapo yung jowa mo, syempre maraming hahabol dyan. Okay? Pag maraming hahabol dyan, what will happen? It might destroy your relationship. Okay? What's another risk? Naku, very material yung jowa ko. Oh, so that's a risk already. What if you don't have enough capital? Okay? You're enough capital to enough capital to maintain that relationship. Naku, baka magbago yung jowa ko kasi hindi ko siya pwedeng i-date sa 5-star or 3-star hotel. So, guys, those are the risks. Okay? So, because of that, because of that risk, these are unforeseen obstacles. It's very, very important, na makita natin lahat tong risk na to. Not necessary for us to know everything, but just for us to know and be aware of the red flags. So we can also call risks as your red flags. Okay? Now, let's go into an example. Say, we're trying to put up a business, a bakery. Okay? Now, guys, mapuput up pa lang tayo ng bakery. Okay? So, can you please help me sa chat box? What are the risks that you see in putting up a business like a bakery? Anyone? Chat box, please. Again, this is a safe zone. Okay? Walang maling sagot. It all depends on how you explain your answer. So, let's practice that. Anyone? So, magpuput up tayo ng business. Ano yung mga nakikita niyong risk? Ano yung mga red flags natin? Okay. While you guys are thinking, I'll give one. Capital. Okay. Do we have enough capital, to put up the business? Okay, we have here Miss Danica. She answered competitors. Yes. Okay. So that's good. Napakadaming mga bakery na ngayon, Even mga coffee shops, naglalagay na sila ng sarili ng bakery. So, okay, competitors, that's good. Miss Janie answered low foot traffic or location. Yes, that's very, very important for a business. Okay, usually, based on what I noticed, sa mga businesses, lalo na yung mga pagkain, food business, okay, if pangit yung location mo, why would people spend time to go to your place if your food or the service or the goods you are offering is not exceptional? Does it make sense na parang, naku, layo-layo naman ang layo-layo naman ng location nila, ang benta lang naman nila pandesal, diba? Pero ako bumili ng pandesal dyan sa kanto. Okay? So that's your location. Another is parking. Yes, that's very, very important, parking. For example, here in New York, napamahal ng parking, at the same time, if mahirap yung parking, it's your time, rather than you going somewhere else. Gusto mo, lahat ng mga tao ngayon, they want it very convenient, as much as possible. Ayaw nilang naghihintay, ayaw nilang nag-exert ng additional effort. So, gusto nila, pag bibili na sila, magbabayad na, alis na. Okay? So, parking, that's good. What else, guys? How about the rest? What else do you think? Napakadami, guys. What are the other risks that you can think of that we may encounter as we put up a bakery business? Anyone? Anyone else? How about the rest? Wala na? Quality of product and sustainability. Yes. So that's also, when you're putting up a business, it's really very important already to take into mind, to consider, ano ba yung product ko? What would be my materials? I mean, my ingredients. If you're talking about quality, papasok na dyan yung supplier mo. So it's another risk, Will I have a very good supplier, na kaya akong bentahan ng ingredients na I'll be needing, in my operation. Kasi guys, pag nagka-problema yung supplier mo, wala kang maibebenta. Okay? And again, yes, that's correct. During sustainability, napakaraming business na okay, sa umpisa lang, napakasarap, after a few months or so, medyo nagde-degrade na yung quality ng products nila. It's either because naglalas ng costs or whatnot. So that's good. Okay. You also have your inventory or stock level. Yes, that's also correct. That's also one of the risks that you should also consider, lalong-lalo na in a bakery business. Okay, hindi pwedeng mag-produce ka ng napakadami. Okay, masisira, guys. Okay, consider the type of business we are trying to put up. So, see, nasa planning stage pa lang tayo. No, wala pa tayo sa actual operation ng business natin, but we can already see a lot of risk. Pwede ring risk na laging nababaha. For example, if you put up a bakery in the Pilipinas, pag yan nabaha, nasira lahat. Okay? Another risk, yung tax within the area if napakataas. Another risk, you have your inflation. Okay? Another risk, wala kang mahanap na good baker. Okay? Ang hirap pagpatay ng bakery na wala kang baker. No? Na magaling na baker talaga. Okay? So, you see, risks are everywhere. Okay? So, this, again, always remember, these risks are unforeseen obstacles. But, as managed accountants at CMAs, it is very important for us to first be accepting that risks are really these risks are what do you call this one, are really there. They are existing. Okay? Napakadami kasi ng companies ngayon, not just small businesses, but even big companies, guys, na they deny. Mga denial. Okay. Ay, naku, hindi. Walang ganyan sa company namin. Walang problema sa company namin. Okay sa company namin. And if you do that, if the risk happen, you're not prepared. And if you are not prepared, it can cost you a lot of money. Okay? So, that's very, very important. Now, let's know, we already know what the risk is, no? And you can see here that it can originate from inside or outside the organization. So, an internal and external kind of risk. Okay, again, I need your help, guys. Chat box tayo. Can you give me, okay, na-put up na natin yung business, ongoing na yung operation ng bakery natin. Okay, now, can you give me an example of an internal risk or risk within our business? Anyone? Okay, it's also very important, guys, for you to differentiate what are the external and internal risks arising in the organization or in the company or in the business. Okay? So, anyone? Internal, guys, ano yung risk natin? Anyone? Employees turnover, yes, that's correct. Thank you, Ms. Jamie, for that. So, it's a risk because, say for example, pinag-training mo yung employees mo how to bake, how to do this and that. So, may cost ka dun, di ba? And then, if marami kang employees turnover, maraming nagre-resign, papalit ka ng tao, it cost you a lot, no? That's the risk. At the same time, yun nga, yung sustainability, papasok na ngayon yung sustainability and quality of product ni Drin a while ago. Okay? Iba-iba eh. Iba-iba din humahawak, iba-iba din baker mo. So, ang pwedeng mangyari, if hindi consistent yung ingredients, hindi consistent yung procedures na ginagawa onto baking, magbabago yung mga products mo. And it might affect your operation. So, thank you, Ms. Jeannie, for that. What else, guys? Ano pa yung mga risks natin internally? Anyone else? Ano pa naiisip ninyo? Internal. Yes, poor management. Thank you, Hershey, for that. That's good. Okay? If we have poor management, no, hindi maganda yung pamamalakad within the organization, it will affect everyone. Okay? Especially your people. Okay? For example, masyado mo nang OT yung mga tao mo, you don't have rules and policies within your organization. Pag naisip lang ng manager, ito yung gusto kong gawin. The next day, babaguhin na naman niya. So that's a type of a poor management. Okay, that's good. What else, guys? Fraud? Yes. Fraud also is an internal risk. So, anong pwedeng mangyari? Pwedeng ninanakawan ka, okay, ng mga empleyado mo, or the management is, they are manipulating your financial statement. Okay? Those are risks. Those are high-level type of risk. Okay? Because first, nananakawan ka, so ng asset, nawawalan ka ng cash. Meron pang audit, you are at hindi nakita yung fraud, no? Later on, you can see ano yung effect ng management having the capability, no, to manipulate the financial statement. I-discuss natin yun later on. So, hindi siya biro. There are really punishments given to the management. So, yeah, that's all correct. Another is that the basic ones, spoilage, ayan. Risk mo yan internally, no? Nasisira yung mga ingredients, nasisira yung mga goods and yung mga goods and products na provide mo. Okay? Good job, everyone, for providing example. Poor SOP. What's SOE po? Baka mali yung hindi. Yes po. Ano po?
Standard operating procedures po.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Sa process ng bakery, sa operations.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, correct. That's also one. If we don't have standard operating procedures within the organization, kung kanya-kanya lang tayo, ay nako, magkakagulo yung organization. So that's a very good risk as well. Okay, good job, guys. Now, let's move on to the external risk. Okay, how about external, guys? Can you give me an example of external risk that originates outside the organization? Medyo may na-mention na tayo kanina, no? Na-mention na natin yung competitors, no? Na-mention na natin yung government, which is involving your tax, your inflations, but what else? Ano pa yung mga naiisip nyo outside organizations? Usually, itong mga external risks, no, we have very small or we don't have control at all. Okay. This one's very, very good example. We have pandemic outbreak. Yes. Did you see how COVID really affects a lot of industries, a lot of organizations, a lot of businesses, no? Yung mga businesses na napatayo pa nung mga lolo't lolo and whatever, lahat sila nagsara just because of pandemic. Okay? So some of the businesses are no longer relevant during the pandemic, no? Nagsara sila and hindi na sila nakabawi, hindi na sila nakabalik. So, that's a very good example. Another good example here from Hershey is that your calamities, which is correct. No? Say, for example, sa Maui, there was the hurricane. So, because of that hurricane, nasira. Ang daming nasira. Nawala yung mga customers. Even the tourists, no? Wala na. Okay? Another example would be in the Philippines, nung laging binabagyo, Okay? Laging nakakabalik naman sa business. But then, it's still a risk because after ng bagyo, nasisira yung location, yung store. Okay? It takes time for you to like do a repairs. Okay? What a good example is my friend in Siargao. No? Lagi silang binabagyo sa Siargao. Laging nagtitweak yung electricity. 3 beses nang nasunog yung hotel niya. Okay? And then 3 beses na din yung pinaparenovate. So, bagong-bago pa lang yung hotel, pero hindi pa nakakabawi. Nasunog ulit. No? So, you see, those are those risks that originate originate outside the organization. Very, very little lang yung magagawa natin to control them. But we have capabilities, no, for at least as much as possible to lessen yung effect niya sa atin. For example, yung mga laging nababagyo, they should have an insurance, di ba? Para pag nasira, okay, you have insurance to pay you. So lahat yon, those are examples of controls. Pero hindi mo natin siya i-handle, i-discuss natin siya later on dahil nasa risk pa lang tayo. Okay? Now, we've already know the definition of risk. No? We know that there are internal and external risks. Now, we also have different types of risk. We have your financial risk. Okay? You have your operational risk. You have your hazard risk. You have your business risk, and you have your strategic risk. Okay? So, yung financial risk, as the term itself, financial. So, when you are putting up a business, okay, you need capital. Okay? Do you have enough capital to put up a business? At the same time, when you're already operating the business, do you have enough capital to continue the business? Okay, kaya mo bang pasweldohin lahat ng empleyado mo? Okay, do you have enough capital to buy your ingredients, your materials, your raw materials from your suppliers? Okay, do you have enough capital for your investments? For example, in our bakery, we have our machineries. Okay, ang daming kailangan nating bilhin, right? So do you have all those? And not only that, guys, also another financial risk is that will you be able to manage your cash well? Okay, dapat you have an financial advisors or financial group within your organizations, lalo ng malalaki, to manage your cash. Okay, that's your financial risk. Now let's go on to your operational risk. For example, in our bakery, no, operational risk, do we have, yun nga, may SOP ba tayo? Like what Ms. Danica mentioned a while ago. Do you have a standard operating procedure in place? Okay? Do we have enough supply, no, to continue with our business? That's operation. Do we have the correct people? Okay? Naka-training ba lahat ng mga tao natin? Alam pa nila yung ginagawa nila and whatnot? Okay? A good example in the operational risk that I can give you is with Coca-Cola. I used to work before sa headquarters ng Coca-Cola and it's really amazing, no? Kasi every time you join the company, in your first month, they want you to look and have a tour sa lahat ng mga tawag dito, lahat ng anong tawag ulit dun sa location kung saan ginagawa yung pag-produce. Okay, dun sa kanilang warehouse, no? So, and then they give you a chance to go out and do the same things kung ano yung ginagawa ng sales. So, pupunta ka sa palengke, magbebenta ka, okay? Mag-o-offer ka ng refrigerators, okay? Those are part of your operational risk. Okay, how you do your operations. What are the risks in making sure that your operation continues as intended? Okay? Next one is your hazard risk. Ayan, papasok na dito yung mga pandemic, calamities, okay? What else? Those types of risks. Okay? Nasa hazard risk sila. Now we go into your business risk. Your business risk is your risk that affect your business as a whole. For example, our bakery. Usually, yung business risk is nasa taas siya. Under niya yung mga financial, operational risk, and strategic risk. It's really your business as a whole. Okay? Say for example, your business, one of your risks here is that your competitors, your market share, okay? Kung sino yung mga target market mo, that's your business risk. And then moving on to your strategic risk. Every plan that you make, okay, may katumbas po yan na risk. Say for example, you've wanted to have another branch ng ating bakery. Okay? That's a strategy. Okay? That's one of our strategy to grow our business. Now, if you have something in place, if you have a move in place, at the end of the day, you need to be very, very careful and understand what are the risks that they might be. Okay? Kung mag-extend ka, kaya ba ng capital mo? So, babalik ka sa financial risk. Okay? If magkakaroon ka ng another branch, will you have the same kind of people with the same skills? No? O yan, operational risk ulit. So, magkakadugtong-dugtong lahat ng mga risk na to. Okay? So, those are your type of risk. Again, usually ito yung mga lumalabas sa essay. And sometimes, it asks you to describe them. And, again, inuulit ko, CMA does not require you to really give the exact definitions that you have in your book. It all depends on how you understand them, at the same time, how you explain and rationalize your answer. Okay? So it's just very important for you guys to know the concept. It's not necessary that you memorize everything. I don't recommend that. Okay? So just familiarize, just know the concepts, and you'll be good. Okay, there are also other type of risks. Ito, medyo mas specific na siya. Okay, you have your legal risk. Okay, legal risk, for example, do you have lawsuits, no? Yung mga lawsuits, yun yung mga examples of your legal risk. Compliant risk, of course, if you are putting up a business, kailangan meron kang permit. Okay, we are in a food business, so kailangan yung sanitary natin compliant. You guys here in New York, meron kaming, I don't know what's the setup dyan sa inyo. Pero dito sa New York, yung mga food business, meron silang grade from the sanitary. So, grade A, grade A plus ata, A minus, B minus, parang ganon. So, pag bumaba ka ng B minus, they will come to your shop, no? Ipapasara nila agad. Okay, once may nag-complain na may ipis dyan sa location mo, ay nako, very, how do I call this one? Napaka-sensitive ng mga tao dito. That's why, one time, may kinainan kaming Korean resto. And then, syempre, mga Pilipino tayo guys, merong ipis dun sa wall. Kami, patay mali siya lang kami. Ipis lang naman yan, di ba? So, ipis lang yan. Napakadami sa atin yan, no? Hinahabol pa nga natin. Okay, on the other side, may kabilang table. Nako, naghihiyawan na sila. Cockroach. Eh, di cockroach. Ayan, di nag-hysterical yung may-ari ng restaurant na parang they're kinda afraid and na baka mag-report yung mga tao dun sa kabilang table. So what they did is that nag-offer sila ng, I don't know, wine ata, isang bottle of wine yung in-offer sa kabila. Ako, sa kabila parang grabe naman. Siyempre, mga Pinoy tayo guys, hindi tayo papatalo. So, naglagay kami ng note sa likod na hindi na kami magbibigay ng tip kasi merong cockroach. So, ang tip is actually 18%. Medyo madami kami. So, malaki-laki yung tip. Sabi namin, ko, hindi pwedeng magpatalo tayo. Sabihin na lang natin na parang hindi na tayo magbibigay ng tip kasi we saw the cockroach. So, ayun, libre tayo ng tip, guys. So, yun, that's your compliant risk. Okay, depende sa lugar. Meron yung mga sobrang sensitive. Okay, and now your political risk. Ito, medyo lumalala na to, no? Your political risk, it depends kung ano yung plataforma ng current administration or current one who's sitting in the position. For example, ayaw nung merong akong town, Bukidnon province. Ayan, taga Ilocos po pala ako. So, Ilocano po ako. So, there's a town, Bukidnon province, wherein may political dynasty. So, sa kanila yung place. Pangit, no? Sa kanila. So, parang lahat ng from mayors, vice mayor, pababa, lahat kamag-anak nila. Okay? So, and then, medyo mayaman yung pamilya. Hindi siya medyo, mayaman pala yung pamilya. And then, all of the businesses in the towns sa kanila. Pati yung palengke sa kanila, guys. So, even the restaurants sa kanila lahat. McDonald's, Jollibee, Chowking, hindi makapasok sa lugar. Kasi, once pumasok yun, mamamatay yung business nila. No? So, nung nakaupo sila, walang ganong kind of business dun sa lugar. Puro mga local restaurants na pagmamayari nila. Nung natalo sila sa election, iba yung umupo. Ayan, pumasok lahat ng mga Jollibees, McDonald's, Chowking, Goldilocks, blah, blah, blah. So, that's the effect of, one example, an effect of political risk. Sometimes they control the place and sometimes it affects the business. Another example is that when SM, I think sa ibang town na to, ibang province na to, one province is that SM was trying to invest. Gusto nila magpatay ng SM dun sa lugar na yun. But the political family who is in there is asking for 200 million. Hindi pumayag yung SM. Diba? So, those type of political risk. Yung mga corrupt na to, guys. So, again, hindi lang to sa Pilipinas. Even other countries, corruption is very rampant. Okay? So, ayun. Those are your different types of risk. Any questions so far? But thumbs up naman po, guys. Just to know, hindi pa kayo natutulog. Okay pa? Yun. Okay. Thanks, Mrs. Janica. Okay. Also si Sir Drin. Okay. Now, let's move on to our next slide. We have your residual risks and your inherent risk. Guys, this is very, very important. Please take note of this one. Okay? So, after natin, guys, na-understand what risk is, what are the different types of your risk, it's also very important, no, to understand kung ano yung pwede natin gawin sa mga risk na yon. Okay? So, meron tayo dito tinatawag na inherent risk and your residual risk. Okay? So, dun muna tayo sa inherent risk. Your inherent risk present in any scenario where no attempts, highlight that, no attempts at mitigation have been made and no controls or other measures have been applied to reduce the risk from initial level to levels more acceptable to the organization. Okay, anong ibig sabihin po nun? Meaning, yung inherent risk, okay, existing yung risk. Let's give an example. Okay, Balik tayo sa favorite kong example. Napakagwapo ng jowa mo. Okay? You have a very, very handsome jowa. Ayan. That's your risk in your relationship. No? Kasi, again, explain ko na kanina why that's a risk. That's an inherent risk. Wala kang ginagawa. Ine-enjoy mo lang, guys, yung pagkagwapo ng jowa mo. So, marami naghahabol sa jowa mo, pero wala kang ginagawa. Okay? That's your inherent risk. Another example of inherent risk. Ninanakawan ka na ng empleyado mo. You're not doing anything. But you know it's existing. Alam mong ninanakawan ka na. Okay? Pero wala kang ginagawa. Take note, inherent risk, no attempts have been made to control, okay, or to reduce the risk. Okay? Wala kang ginagawa. Patay mali siya tayo. Another example. Ano ba? Wait, balik ko yung mga example nyo kanina. So you have employees turnover. Okay? Nagsisialisan yung mga tao mo. Okay? Nagsisialisan yung mga tao mo, wala kang ginagawa. That's your inherent risk. Now, okay, you see, ito, dito sa ating picture here, meron tayong parang filter. Okay? That's when you jump in and you do something. Meron ka nang gagawin dun sa mga risk na existing. Let's go to our example. Ninanakawan ka na. Okay? So, what did you do? Naglagay ka ng CCTV dun sa ang tawag dun? Dun sa cashier area. Okay? Or, at the end of the day, nire-review mo na lahat ng sales and lahat ng total cash na nire-receive mo during the day. Okay? You did something already because you know that a risk is existing. You want to eradicate that risk or just to reduce the risk to a acceptable level. Okay? So, after mo ginawa yung control, nananakawan ka pa rin. Okay? So, yung mga hindi mo totally na-eradicate, yun yung mga tinatawag natin na residual risk. Okay? Residual. So, the risk that remains after efforts to identify and eliminate some or all types of risks have been made. Okay? Another example, employees turnover. No? Ang ginawa mo, nagkaroon ka ng contract with your employees. Okay? Na meron kang bond na 2 years. Okay? Pero may nagsisialisan pa rin. Nagbabayad sila ng breach of contracts sa'yo. So, that's your residual risk. Okay? Kasi hindi mo totally makokontrol, guys. Okay? Pag hindi mo totally na-control at may risk pa rin, that's what we call your residual risk. Guys, take note of this one. Lagi itong lumalabas. Okay, sa exam. Know the difference of your inherent risk in here. Inherent risk and residual. Okay? Residual risk, ano yung naiwan after ka nag-effort. Okay? Yung jowa mong napakagwapo, ang ginawa mo, kinulong mo lang sa kwarto ninyo. Okay? Pero, ayun, hindi mo makontrol, nakikipag-chat pa rin sa iba. So, hindi na nakikipagkita sa iba, nakikipag-chat naman sa iba. So, there's still the residual risk. Okay? Yung naiwan. Because, practically, no, in reality, no, even the biggest companies, kahit mag-invest sila ng millions of dollars on their controls, no, on the risks that are existing in their organization, they cannot 100% eliminate all the risks. Okay? Walang ganon. Sometimes, on different types of risk, pwede mo siyang eradicate. But, napakahirap gawin. And sometimes, guys, remember, meron tayong cost-benefit analysis. Okay? So, ayan. That's your residual risk and your inherent risk. Any questions so far? All good? Okay pa po? May questions or do you have any clarifications? Again, guys, feel free to just jump in, unmute your mic, let me know if you have any questions. Okay? Or sabihin nyo na, masyado ka pong mabilis. That's fine. We can repeat the discussion. All good po? Yes? Ayun. Okay. Thank you. Now, let's proceed to our next slide. Now, we all know what the different types of risks are. Now, it's not enough na alam natin kung ano yung mga risks. Okay? It's not enough that we know and at the same time, we are aware that there is a risk. For us to be very efficient, no, and for our company as well, no, we need to manage this risk. Okay? When we say manage, what do we mean? So I have here the risk management process. How do we manage our risk? Of course, our first step is here, you identify the risk. Okay? Alam na natin yan. Okay? So, second one is you assess the risk. You prioritize the risk. You formulate a risk response. And at the end of the day, you need to monitor whatever that response that you've made. Now, let's discuss them in details. The first one, you have your identifying risk. Meron tayong guys na tawag na risk universe. This is a concept actually from EY, from my organization. So yung risk universe, it's actually the list of risks the company faces or might face, coupled with a description with their severity and their frequency, along with the decision as to what the company wants to do with such risk. Okay? Guys, take note of those two terms, severity and frequency. Okay? Focus muna tayo sa risk universe. Okay? How do we come up with our risk universe? Okay? So usually, in big organizations, what they do is that on a per department basis, no? Okay, Department 1, kay Sir Drin. Sir Drin, you need to identify what are those risks within your department. Okay? Ganun din kay Miss Janie. In your own department, you identify what are your risks. Okay? And then and the other departments as well. Okay? So, during that time, they don't just identify the risk, but they need to put a description on those risks because they need to identify what are the high risk and the low risk. Okay? Ano ba yan? Ang dami-dami. High risk tsaka low risk. Okay, your high risk, later on, i-discuss natin in thorough yung severity and frequency. But dun muna tayo sa identifying your risk. Okay? Always remember your risk universe. So guys, makikita nyo dito, ito yung mga types of risk natin na discuss natin kanina, right? You have your operations, you have your strategic, you have your financial. Ayan, medyo mas magiging detailed na siya, magiging legal, people, culture, process, intellectual property, and so on and so forth. Okay? So that's your risk universe. After na-collect yan ng per department, ginagawa yan on the whole organizations to identify what are the high risk and low risk. Okay? That's your first step in your risk management process. Identifying your risk. Now, let's move on to our second phase, which is your risk assessment. Okay? Your risk assessment, guys, is this one. It's either a qualitative risk or a quantitative risk. Okay? So, you have your analysis of your assessment of the risk that you have identified. Okay? So, the first one is your qualitative risk. Okay? So, ano po ba yung qualitative risk? It is a risk assessment focuses on the probability of a threat occurring and how it will impact the company. Guys, papasok na dito yung severity and frequency. Severity is your how it impact the company, and your frequency is that how does it occur? Ilang beses siyang nag-occur. Okay? Risks are usually on an established scale that estimates probability. Okay, for instances, we have low, medium, and high, and risks are usually categorized based on the source of it or the effect to the company. Again, this is qualitative risk assessment. Usually, this is the use of probabilities. So this is an example. So your impact or your severity or your probability or your frequency. Okay, if the impact is very high, okay, and the probability is very likely, then it's considered as a high risk. So if it does not occur, very rare lang siya, and yung impact niya is very also low, dito siya sa baba. Okay? That's your qualitative risk assessment. Okay? Since this one is the use of probability, no, we have different tools that we use. Ito yung mga basic lang, guys. So, meron tayong assessment. I'll be providing this slide, don't worry. So, and then the second one is that your probability and impact matrix. Ito yon. Ito yung tool na yon. Meron din tayong risk categorization, which is kinakategorize natin yung risk. Is it a financial risk? Is it a business risk? And then we determine if it's a high risk or low risk. Meron din tayong risk urgency assessment. If very urgent yung risk, meaning it can affect the operation. Pag nangyari yung risk, hindi mag-forgo yung operation. A good example of this one is that sa mga banks, okay, sa mga banks, hindi nag-work yung server, na-hack yung server. That's a high risk urgency. Okay, pag na-hack yung server, matitigil yung operation. Pag matitigil yung operation, that's a loss to the company. Okay, not only a loss, also the risk there is that manakaw yung mga data. Okay, SWOT analysis. I know you guys are familiar with SWOT. Lagi natin itong naririnig. Understanding and identifying the strength, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats within the organization. If merong SWOT, meron din tayong I-Core. What are the improvements? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities and risks within the organization? Okay? Mga qualitative risk tools lang to. Okay? Usually, mga assessment lang, mga graph lang to. Okay? That's your qualitative risk tool. Now, let's go to quantitative. Okay? Quantitative, we use here data. Okay? We usually use here your historical data to determine the probability of a risk scenario occurring and numerical values such as money, time, or lost assets to determine the impact. Quantitative risk assessment provides an accurate reflection of your threat landscape. Mas mahirap gawin yung quantitative compare sa qualitative. But your quantitative have a more accurate reflection of the risk. Okay? I'll give you an example. Okay? Numerical na siya, guys. So, for example, you have here the risk. The probability of this one occurring is 15%. The cost of impact is 30%. So yung expected na cost ng risk is $4,500. Don't worry guys, hindi kayo magko-compute ng crazy numbers. Mga ganito lang for quantitative risk assessment. So, nakikita na kayo ng probability and the cost of the impact, you just need to compute how much is the expected monetary value by multiplying the probability by the cost impact. Okay? So, ang sinasabi natin ngayon is that these three risks here, okay? No, actually, dalawa yung threat dito. We have one opportunity. The expected monetary value of this one is 6,500. Okay? That's how we assess the risk. Hindi natin sinasabing high or low, but we give value to the risk. Okay? There are other tools na ginagamit. We have the decision tree analysis. We have the expected monetary value, which is yung discuss ko just like a while ago. We have your 3-point estimate. We have your sensitivity analysis. Yung sensitivity analysis is your what-if analysis. What if meron akong sales na ganito? What will happen? What if ang cost ko is ganito? That's your sensitivity analysis. We have your failure and failure mode and failure mode and effect analysis. And then you have your Monte Carlo analysis. Okay, again, you don't need to memorize all of this. We just need to familiarize yourself that these are examples of your quantitative risk tools. If you want to get more understanding on this one, I recommend go to YouTube. Okay? Yung mga short videos lang. Or guys, very helpful yung Investopedia pag nagre-research kayo online. Kasi after discussion, very short lang yung narrative ng Investopedia. Pero meron siyang simple clip at the end which is just hindi pa siya tataas ng 2 minutes. Okay? If nakita niyo yun yung naging after you search on anything, nakita yung Investopedia, you can use that. That's very, very helpful. Okay? Very non-technical yung mga ginagamit niyang terminology. So, madali lang siyang sundan. So, ayun. Again, if you've wanted to know more about all of these risk tools and medyo nakukulangan kayo sa provide ko sa inyong explanation here, you can go to YouTube or you can just search on these tools for you to understand on how they works. Okay, but again, you are not expected to do a computation of a qualitative risk assessment in the exam. Okay, malinaw po. Now, let's proceed. So, ayan, just a comparison of the quantitative and ano ba yan? Malitong it should be qualitative and quantitative. Okay, yung qualitative natin focuses on all the risks identified in the process. Okay? Dun sa quantitative risk assessment. Okay? This is a very good comparison, no? Dun sa quantitative risk assessment, guys, remember, you are using historical data. So, ang focus lang natin, ang ina-assess lang natin dun sa quantitative are those risks that we have initially identified as high risk. Those that have high possibility and high impact on the organization. Kasi guys, cost-benefit analysis. Pag mababa yung risk, okay, hindi naman siya nag-occur every time. Siguro once in 10 years lang nag-occur yung risk na yon. You won't focus and invest a lot of money on that para gawing yung quantitative risk analysis or assessment. Kasi remember, if you are doing the quantitative risk analysis or assessment, you will need your historical data. Does it make sense? Okay? Qualitative, you don't use numerical methods compared to quantitative. Okay? Sa qualitative, scales risks are used. Okay? Sa quantitative, we give a cost or a duration. Okay? So qualitative, it applied to almost all projects because this is less expensive and easier to do compare sa quantitative risk assessment, which is ginagawa lang to large and complex projects within the organization. Okay? Ina po. So yung qualitative, usually this is for general. But for quantitative, again, we just do this one for those risks that we have identified that are high impact and have a high possibility at the same time to those large and complex projects. Okay? So that's your risk assessment. Okay? Now, side note lang tayo guys. Kasi ang dami na natin ginagamit na terminology. In CMA exam, if napapansin nyo, there are a lot of terminologies being used. Okay? So, usually, we interchange them. Yung iba, parehas ng sinasabi, yung iba hindi. Okay? So, it's very, very important. Kaya nga, I encourage you guys to practice answering. Because in that way, you can be familiar. Kahit once nyo lang na-encounter yung terminology, hindi kayo magugulat sa exam. That's what I always reiterate and say to my students, no? Na parang always make sure na na-encounter mo yung terminology. Kasi guys, in the exam, ninerviews ka na and all. Okay? Tapos may lumabas na terminology that you are not familiar with. Okay? Magpapanik ka. Okay? But if you are familiar on something, even though you don't know the concept, pero nagkita na kayo, no? Mas panatag konti yung loob mo. That's why you should take time, please, to practice answering. Okay? Yan, side note na naman tayo. Anyway, dito tayo ngayon sa ating terminologies. We have your risk management, we have your risk assessment, and your risk analysis. Okay, when we talked about risk management, it's the macro level process of assessing, analyzing, and prioritizing and making a strategy to mitigate the threats to an organization, assets, and earnings. So, nasa macro level to. What do you usually do to the risks that you have identified, to the risks that are existing in your organization? Okay? Your risk assessment, okay, under siya ni risk management. Okay? It aims, when you are doing an assessment, you are aiming to break down threats into identifiable categories and define the impact of the risk. Yun yung assessment. Okay? Now, when you do your risk analysis, it is the micro-level process measuring the risks and their associated impact. So guys, sa risk assessment, halos ang ginagawa lang natin is parang inaayos lang natin siya. Okay? We categorize them. But in the risk analysis, we give more details on the risk. Okay? For example, we qualify the risk. We measure the likelihood and the hazard occurring within that particular risk. Okay? So sa risk assessment, marami pa tayong risk na pinag-uusapan dito. Kinakategorize lang natin. Once na-categorize na natin, we will go into a risk level. Isa-isang risk na. That's why you do your risk analysis. Okay? Make sense? So, risk management, risk assessment, and then your risk analysis. Okay? Napakadaming risk naman ng topic na to. Di ba? Okay. So, okay pa po. No questions so far. Don't worry guys, we'll have a 20-minute break kasi alam ko napakadaming information ang pumapasok. So, don't worry, we'll have a break later on. Okay? So, yeah. So, that's your risk management, risk assessment, and your risk analysis. Again, balik tayo dito. See? So, tapos na tayo sa identifying your risk, assessing your risk, and then prioritizing your risk. Prioritizing, ito na yung after we assess the risk, we identify those that are high risk and those risks that are occurring. Mataas yung occurrence niya. Now, let's go to our risk response. Okay? Again, guys, after our assessment, no, na-identify natin kung ano yung mga high risk. We further understand those in our risk analysis. Na-identify natin kung ano ba talaga yung risk na pinagtutuunan natin ng pansin. Okay? I wanna go back to your risk universe. Guys, napakadaming risk nun. Okay? Hindi lahat yon, no, hindi lahat ng risk na na-identify natin sa risk universe, magkakaroon tayo ng response. Sabi nga ng favorite nating quote, we choose our battles. Diba? We choose our battles. Dun sa mga talagang nakaka-apekto lang talaga sa atin, greatly, yung pinagtutuunan natin ng pansin. And that is also applicable for organizations. Okay? Okay. So, napakadami nating risk sa risk universe. We categorize them when we do assessment. We do a risk analysis kung ano ba talaga yung can greatly affect our organization. Okay? So, nasa elimination process tayo, guys. Kung ano ba talaga yung dapat lang natin pagtuunan ng pansin. And those risks na natingin natin would greatly affect our organization. We should formulate our risk response. Okay, ano ba yung risk response? Meaning, we find this risk very risky. That's why we should do something about it. Okay? So, ano ba yung mga possible responses na pwede nating gawin for those type of risk? Okay? So, we have 5 T's here. The first one is to transfer. Transfer internally. Meaning, we need to escalate. Okay? Say, for example, balik tayo sa binigay nyo kaninang risk example, which is your employee turnover. Okay? So, we felt like, okay, based on our assessment, yung employee turnover natin, the occurrence is very high. The impact is very high when it comes to cost. At the same time, in the operation as a whole. So, we tag that one as a high risk. Now, as a manager, you cannot do anything about it to control it or to reduce the risk. That's why you want someone else from the organization to resolve it for you. So, we escalate it to the top management. Hoy, top management, parang gumalaw-galaw ka naman dyan. Nag-aalisan yung mga tao mo. Pwede bang mag-increase ka ng sahod? Okay? Or pwede bang mag-dagdag ka ng additional benefits? You as a manager cannot do that, right? Kahit anong gusto mong gawin, kahit gusto mong doblehin yung sweldo ng mga empleyado mo, you don't have control on it because you're not the owner of the organization. You're just also an employee of the organization. Now, you wanted to solve that problem. How will you able to solve the problem? You escalate it. Okay? I-escalate mo siya na parang, hey, top management, I think you should improve the benefits that you provide to your people. I think you should have an increase, you should have a bonus or whatnot. Usually, top management yung nagde-decide niyan, guys. That's why, one of the responses that we can make is to escalate it to the top management because they have more power to do something. Okay? They have more power to do something. That's why we escalate it. We transfer the risk internally. meaning we transfer it to someone else who is more powerful or more capability to solve or reduce the risk. Okay? Now, second one is terminate the risk or to avoid the risk or remove the risk 100%. Okay? Wala akong maisip na example nito guys sa organization. But in a relationship, pag sobrang pogi ng jowa mo, i-break mo na lang yung jowa mo guys. That's it. Diba? Na-terminate na yung risk. Wala yung sakit ng ulo mo ng about your guwapong jowa. Okay? You terminate your risk. Usually, guys, in businesses and organizations, it's very rare to see a risk response that really terminates the risk. Unless i-close yung business. Okay, for example, ang risk nila is that yung isang product, okay, hindi na siya nag-click sa market. So, ginawa na lahat. Advertising, sale, lahat-lahat na. Hindi pa rin mawala yung risk na hindi maganda yung market share ng product na yon. Ayaw pa rin siya ng tao. Ayaw pa rin siya ng customers. So, for you to avoid that, okay, avoid. Terminate. That's it. That's the end of it. Okay? So, that's your second T. Now, your third T is that you mitigate. You treat the risk. You reduce the impact, reduce the probability. So, ito, medyo may patience pa to, guys. Hindi niya tinerminate yung buong risk, but you just reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Okay, ano po yung acceptable level? Okay, very good question. So, your acceptable level depends on your organization. Wala pong standard kung ano yung acceptable level of risk. Depende yon sa organization. Kung ano yung kaya nilang i-handle. O, diba? Kung ano, later on, we will discuss that further. But gusto ko lang i-emphasize dito sa mitigate. When the organization is trying to reduce the impact of a risk, it should be in an acceptable level. Guys, please take note of that. If we are trying to reduce the risk at an acceptable level, that's when you mitigate it. Kasi guys, napaka-nonsense. No? Nag-effort ka pa. Kung ni-reduce mo yung impact, pero not in your acceptable level, parang nalulugi ka pa rin. May ginawa ka na, nalulugi ka pa rin. Parang, gets nyo yun, guys? So, it should be within the acceptable, tolerable level within the organization. Again, there is no standard on that acceptable level. It all depends on the organization. Okay? Our fourth key is that you transfer. You shift to a third party. Okay? One very good example of this one is insurance. You have a risk, yung location mo, very prone siya sa typhoon, hurricanes, flood, and whatnot. So, you have the risk na laging nasisira yung mga equipment mo, laging nasisira yung building, yung mga warehouse mo. So, isi-shift mo yung risk sa insurance. Okay, bibili ka ng insurance, pag nasira, sila magbabayad. Okay, that's a good example of your transfer. The difference of this one to escalate is that escalate is internal. Transfer is into third party. Ito guys, last T, ito na yung mga tinatawag nating shucks, anong tawag ulit doon guys? Tulungan niyo ako guys. When you accept everything, isa kang ano ba yung Tagalog terminology doon? Ano ba yun? Oh gosh, nakalimutan ko. So, anyway, on this 50, ito inherent risk na lang siya. So, wala na tayong ginagawa. Okay lang sa atin na may risk. Okay. Usually, this is a risk response to those risks that we have identified as low. Okay? Dahil low risk lang naman siya. Okay? Sige, accept na lang natin. Hindi naman ganun kalaki yung impact sa organization. That's usually the case for those risks that we just accept. Or we just accept it because of cost-benefit analysis. Pag gagawa tayo ng control, pag gagawa tayo ng response, it will cost more rather than yung benefit na makukuha natin from that. Of course, guys, at the end of the day, we are business-minded individuals. Gusto natin, dun tayo sa kung saan tayo ang magbe-benefit, diba? Kung saan may profit. Okay? So, usually, sige, accept na lang. Mas marami pa rin yung benefit natin. Kumpara kung maglalagay tayo ng response, and then, i-measure natin yung anong benefit natin from that, mas konti. So, parang ganun. So, again, guys, it's very important for you guys to be aware and know these concepts of your risk response. Again, you escalate, avoid, mitigate, transfer, and then accept. Okay? So, that's your risk response. Any questions so far? Question po? Wala? Nawiwindang pa rin ako. Hindi ko maalala yung term na yun dun sa accept. Babalikan ko kayo dyan, guys. Habang iniisip ko pa siya. Anyway. Another side note here. Ayan, another side note. Konting slide na lang and we'll have a quick break. Okay? So, another side note here, meron tayong natawag dito na risk appetite. And then your risk tolerance. Guys, remember yung sinasabi ko dito kanina sa mitigate. It should be within the acceptable level. Okay? Yung acceptable level na yon, it's what we call your risk appetite. Okay? What do we mean by risk appetite of an organization? It's the amount of risk an organization is willing to accept to achieve its objective. Okay? So, alam ni organization na may risk. Alam ni organization na ito yung epekto niya sa kanya. Okay? So, hanggang dito lang ako. Kaya ko tong tanggapin. Yun yung sinasabi ni organization. Kailangan ko tong tanggapin. Okay? Kaya ko pa siyang i-handle. Okay? Kaya pa siyang i-handle. Meaning, your risk appetite is still within your acceptable level. Okay? Now, your risk tolerance. Okay? Ito na yung kaduluduluhan ng patience mo, guys. Okay? The acceptable deviation from the organization's risk appetite. For example, no? Yung example natin dito, medyo blur lang siya. In the road, no? Pag nag-drive kayo, guys, ang sinasabi doon is that you're just allowed to drive a minimum of 70 miles per hour. Okay? Yun yung acceptable level. Okay? Yun yung acceptable, yun yung parang standard mo within your organization. Okay? Na hanggang 70 lang. Pag lumagpas ka ng 80, kaya ko pa ng konti. That's your tolerance. Pero pag lumagpas na siya ng 80, that's already unacceptable. Huhulihin ka na ng pulis. Parang ganun. Okay? Again, your risk acceptance and your risk tolerance depends on the organization. Iba-iba po siya. Hindi po pare-pareho. Other organizations can have a higher risk appetite. Okay? Then can take more higher risk tolerance. But other organizations cannot. Okay? That's the difference. Again, this is depending on the organization, on their policy. Kung ano yung risk appetite nila. Kung ano lang yung kaya nilang i-accept. Okay? So, that's your risk appetite and your risk tolerance. Now, konti na lang to. Before we go on to our break. So, what is your benefits of your risk management? Again, guys, balik tayo sa risk management natin, ha? You identify the risk. Okay? You do assessment of the risk. Okay? After your assessment, you analyze your risk. Okay? After you analyze the risk, you perform or you formulate your risk response. Okay? And after your risk response, you need to monitor that response. If that is really working, okay, or at the end of the year, if you think that hindi na siya relevant, kailangan mo na siyang improve, something like that. So it's really, really very important to always monitor. That's your risk management. Now, what's the benefit of this one? The first one is your efficient use of resources. Bakit po? Bakit efficient use of resources? Again, guys, remember, you have a risk universe, right? But in your risk universe, you do an assessment. You only wanted to see what are those high risk, those risks that really impact your organization para doon ka lang mag-focus. Okay? Hindi pwedeng lahat ng risk, again, pinoproblema mo. We just choose our battles, right? So, we efficiently use our resources by how? By properly assessing or doing an assessment of the risk that we have identified. Ito yung favorite ko sa lahat, which is very, very important. Fewer surprises. Okay? That's why we have a risk universe. Because it's more important for us to know and then for us to be prepared on what to do rather than denying things, no? Tapos pag nangyari nga ka, okay? At least if you have a risk management, you know that a risks are present, no, within the organization. And you've already know what might happen because you've already do an analysis of your risk and something like that. And at the end of the day, you are reassuring your investors that you are what? You are assuring your investors that you know what's happening in the business. And if something happens, you can reassure them that, hey, I know what will I do next. Diba? So, for example, alam mong bahain. Pag alam niya ng mga investors na bahain, they won't invest. But if you assure them that it's okay, we are insured. Diba? So, those are some of the major benefits of your risk management. Okay. Question so far before we go on to a 15-minute break. Anyone? Okay pa po? Gising mo po kayo? Pa-thumbs up naman po if nandyan pa kayo. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Danica. Thank you, Hershey. Okay. Also with Janie and Trin. Okay, guys. Let's have a 15-minute break. That wraps up our discussion on risk before we move on to our cost of framework later on. If you have any questions, we can discuss them later on as we continue. Okay? So, water break muna kayo, coffee break muna kayo, guys. Talk to you guys later.